Hi, I'm Bill Ohms. Today we're going to talk about adding a stepper motor to your spindle of your regular lathe for indexing. Instead of using a traditional index plate, you can add a stepper motor with a computer interface to very precisely control the indexing. I use this for ornamental turning, but has a lot of other applications. Anytime you have a need for an indexing plate, you can get better resolution, better accuracy, and more importantly, you don't lose count. In particular, people doing open segmented work where you're aligning the pieces and have to index it, it helps you so you don't lose count as you're counting the holes on the index plate. The computer does that for you. I'm using a Jet 1220 mini lathe. You can do a similar kind of thing with just about any kind of lathe. The main components are a small stepper motor that's computer controlled from a controller, and we have a flexible mount on this, spring loaded to keep tension on the belt, a small timing belt pulley, a toothed timing belt, and a larger pulley on the spindle of the lathe so that as the motor rotates, it'll rotate your spindle. And we'll talk about each of these and how I adapted it to the lathe and fit it on here. By having a spring-loaded mount, I can easily remove the belt. Now the stepper motor is disconnected. I can reconnect the regular belt on here, use the lathe for regular turning, and then disconnect that belt, mainly so that if I turn the power on by accident, I don't burn up my stepper motor. Undo the regular belt, slip it off, put this belt on, and we're ready for the indexing. The kind of timing belt and pulleys I'm using are called MXL, Michael X-Ray Lulu, MXL. They're toothed belts with the toothed pulleys, so you don't get any slip. These are 1/4 inch wide. You can buy the belts in various lengths. We'll talk about that a little later. And the large pulley that I have is 130 teeth. The small pulley has 20. I want the biggest ratio. These that I'm buying have the flanges on both sides. I think that keeps the belt on better. So I suggest the flanged style pulleys. And I like the plastic ones because they'll all come made for a 1/4 inch shaft, and so I have to turn that hole out larger. In my case, on the Jet Mini lathe, I need a 3/4 inch hole. By using the plastic pulley, I can mount this on my regular wood lathe and enlarge that hole without the need for a metal lathe. You can also get metal pulleys, but to machine that out, you're going to have to use a metal lathe. Don't try and turn the metal on a regular wood lathe. So I take the large plastic pulley and mount it in my regular 4-jaw chuck on the regular lathe. If you're gentle, you're not going to distort those flanges, and a little bit of distortion on the flanges isn't going to hurt. And simply take a very small parting tool and turn out the center. In my case, I need a 3/4 inch diameter. Your lathe might be different, but I need a 3/4 inch diameter hole to fit on the threaded outboard spindle of my Jet Mini lathe. So I turn that out and get that dimension right where I want. Now after you do the turning of the hole, you'll notice on these plastic ones that they're hollow. And so when you bolt these onto your spindle, it'll compress. So what I did is pack some epoxy in there. I did it on the other one that's on the lathe. This is another one I haven't done it to yet. But pack epoxy in there to fill that gap so that when the bolt comes up, or the nut comes up, it doesn't squeeze that with flex, so you have a solid core. Just pack some epoxy in that gap in between there. Now on my Jet, this is where the traditional pin is for the index wheel. I had to remove that because I want to mount the pulley there, and that's going to get in the way. So I have to remove that little plug. Other lathes have it in other locations. It may not be a problem. So I put the spindle, I actually put some epoxy there so that this doesn't slip with respect to the handle, and put that on there and tighten it up snug so I don't have any play in the spindle, and tighten up my set screws. And now we have the pulley mounted on the spindle. Okay, let's take a closer look at how I mounted the stepper motor. The stepper motors I'm using are 50 to 60 inches of torque. I've got a single mount here on the screw, and then I've got a support piece that has a slot in it so the stepper motor can move up and down, and I've got a spring so it's spring loaded. On the back of the lathe, I've got a piece of aluminum that I have milled 2 slotted holes and 2 screws. And the screws, I drilled holes into the cast iron base, threaded them, and tapped them for the screws. The reason for that slot is so I can move this back and forth to align the belt so it's in perfect alignment with the pulley up above. I've rounded this over so that the stepper motor can fit on there and rotate without interference on the body of the motor. Depending on the kind of stepper motor you have, you may have to adapt this. And of course, depending on what kind of lathe you have, you'll have to adapt that as well. The bottom support of the motor is just a piece of aluminum angle bar. Again, a slotted hole, and the pivot point is a fixed hole. And I've just got a simple bolt with 2 nuts on. I just need enough play in there for it to slide up and down, but I don't want so much play that it doesn't hold the motor securely. The bottom pivot point is just a spacer block, another hole drilled into the cast iron, threaded, so that I can just put that in there and tighten it. And I also have a mounting point for the screw, or a mounting point is a screw that's for the bottom of the spring to pull down on. So putting this all together is just 1 screw mount here. And again, you want this one to be enough, snug enough so it's not sloppy, not so tight that it can't move. You can put a little Loctite on that if you want. And then the spacer block down below. Screw that in. This spring I just found in the hardware store. They have all these drawers full of neat and wonderful things. I like looking through those drawers, and you find a nice spring that gives a nice amount of tension so the motor can move up and down. I've got it too tight here. We'll loosen that up just a little bit. You want things to move up and down so you can slip the belt on and off. Now the belts come in all different sizes, from 2 inches to 70 inches. Wrap a piece of string around here, find out the min and max length by the length of belt that fits. And you may have to adjust the size of your slot on the motor mounts so that you get enough room to get the belt on and off, and you have a nice snug fit there. And that's it for mounting the motor. And that's about it for connecting everything. On the wires of the stepper motor, you'll probably want to have some kind of a connector so that when you move your lathe around, you can quickly disconnect it. You don't want to have these things permanently soldered down or tied down. But as I said before, it's very easy. Slip this off, engage your other belt on the main lathe, use it for plane turning, slip this other belt off, put your timing belt back on, and you're ready to do indexing again. For more information on how to connect a stepper motor to your computer, take a look at my website, the Computerized Ornamental Lathe website, and look for the menu below it. Said computer controlled indexer. It has some parts list, where to get the gears, pulleys, belts, all that kind of stuff. On the next video, we're going to talk about how to use the software on the computer to control the indexer.